Some Sunday evening takeaways then. Round one of the Champions Cup is done. I've just finished watching Bristol against Leinster, the final game in round one. 12 matches and a lot of talking points. Today, 3 games, and those are the ones that I'm going to focus in on, as well as then some sort of big picture takeaways from the opening round of Champions Cup matches. Your thoughts down below in the comments. Please give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. Let's start. I'm going to do it in reverse order then. The game that's freshest in my mind that we've just finished watching. Leinster beating Bristol away from home 35 points to 12. The result maybe not entirely surprising. They're one of the favourites for the competition, albeit they're on the road against Bristol. That game, though, there was nothing, well, everything was surprising about that match. Just the way it went down. It was just an odd game, wasn't it? A farce at some points, the ending, as much as anything. But, I mean, I was expecting lots of points, as there turned out being in the end, but it was 0-0 after 20 minutes. And it was a strange game. The whistle was blowing all the time. I haven't seen an official have that little control over a game in a while. Thought there were going to be fireworks. There was absolutely nothing to speak of in the opening 20 minutes. It was like watching paint dry. All you were hearing was the whistle, scrum reset, penalty, handling error, scrum reset, and so it went on. There was a mad, and I mean like mad in a good way, 6 minutes from Leinster's perspective where they just cut loose. In the end, Sam Prendergast, at his tender age, with the confidence of now being a full international for Ireland, came back into Leinster colours and went, right, I'll do it myself. Made a break, solo try, and he scored another one. And in the middle, this man, Geordie Barrett, making his debut for Leinster and bagging himself a meat pie for the trouble as well. And that's 6 minutes, those 2 Prendergast tries, the Barrett try, and the game was done. Bristol got a little bit of a consolation try, but yeah, it was already over by then. And Leinster had enough quality. They didn't show enough of it in the first half. It was 7-7 at half time. But the first half was just Leinster's line speed against Bristol's efforts to try and get the ball to the outside. Bristol weren't able to play their rugby that we've seen in the Premiership against Leinster. They just shut them down. But Bristol's defence was heroic as well, and consequently, Leinster couldn't get in on the game. As I said, I've mentioned the set piece was a complete mess. There was a yellow card for Max Deegan in the first half for a cynical trip on Harry Randall, and then Joe McCarthy should have been for the same offence, but got away with a penalty. It was just massive penalty count for Leinster. That will be a concern, and particularly when you piece it together with the fact that through November, Ireland had a really big penalty count as well. Is there something maybe in the mindset or the way that Ireland and Leinster are being set up that makes them more likely to get penalties? I don't know. Bristol will feel like they should have made more of that first half. And then in the second half, I mean, that bench, Sneyman, Porter and Doris all came on at the same time. And you thought, right, this is done and dusted. Geordie Barrett was already on the field, but just after those changes was when the key moments in the game happened. Josh van der Fleer was really good again. Great to see Jack Conan running wild. And I hope AJ McGinty for Bristol is all right. That seemed to be a bit of a blow for them. Him going off, he's so important to them. So there you go, 35 points to 12. One of the favourites for the competition with the full 5 points. Away from home, wagons are rolling and Leinster are in a very good place. Right, the game before that, the other favourite for the competition, the current holders, Toulouse, 61 points to 21. We thought it might be lambs to the slaughter, as it turned out to be. Ulster, well, Richie Murphy, the Ulster head coach, he said, and I quote, I wrote this down because it just made me chuckle. After the game, in the interview, he said, quote, if you concede 60 points, you make it difficult for yourself. That is true. There you go, newsflash. Conceding 60 points makes it quite hard to win rugby games. It was an absolute beatdown. It was men against boys. The Ulster pack just cannot hold a candle to an elite tier pack, which is exactly what Toulouse had. And my goodness me, the skills that Toulouse can execute in awful conditions is amazing. When you think about some of the bad conditions we've had over the weekend, the rain and wind, and some of the poor handling there's been, some of the poor execution, and for Toulouse to play the way they did in those conditions is just outstanding. It was a point a minute in the first half, and there were some outrageous scores. Mathis Lebel, his finish. Emmanuel Meafu is an absolute beast. Jacques Willis is quite handy at rugby, isn't he? My goodness me. Every time I watch him play in Toulouse colours, on the one hand, I think, how amazing that an Englishman gets to play in arguably the best club team in the world and around some amazing players. And he's got so much better as a result. And in that team, Jacques Willis stands out. Sorry, Jacques Willis stands out. But he can't play for England. He cannot take everything he's soaking up and learning from the top 14 and the Champions Cup and put it into England colours. It's so short-sighted, England. What are you doing? He's way better now than he would have been if he'd stayed in the Premiership. It's madness. It does my head in. It does my head in. Do we want the England team to win, or do you want the Premiership to have good players? What is the priority? What is the point? I want the England team to win a World Cup. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed. I'm supposed to be talking about Champions Cup. It just does my head in. On the Jacques Willis point, does anyone know what the deal is? Because I know that World Rugby's rules are you can only change to and play for another country after a 3-year stand-down period, and if you have parents or grandparents or you were born in that country. Now, that's not the case for Jacques Willis in France. But if he becomes a citizen in a couple of years' time, would that be different? Like Emmanuel Mayafu is a citizen of France now. If Jacques Willis became a citizen, would he be allowed to play? I don't know what the rules are. But if I were France, I would be working that out. Who else? Yeah, Jacques Willis, Emmanuel Mayafu, that Antoine Dupont. My God, this. Every time I watch him, I just feel privileged to be alive during a time when Antoine Dupont is on a rugby field. Some of the things he does are just ridiculous. That assist kick for Ange Capuozzo. Mwah, chef's kiss. He is amazing. And imagine being Ulster and you go, Piato Mavaka's going off. Phew. Got rid of one of the best hookers in the world. Who's coming on? Julien Marchand. Right. Here we go again. Their squad is just ridiculous. Juan Cruz Malia coming off the bench. It's nuts. Ulster were poor. Toulouse were brilliant. Ulster were not good. And they're not in a great place at the minute. Yeah, Toulouse looked every bit the favourite. Loved watching that. And Bordeaux versus Leicester, the scoreline, which is not too dissimilar from the one that I predicted. I think I said Bordeaux by 20 or thereabouts. It wasn't far off that. But that doesn't tell the whole story of the game. Leicester were up 21 points to 14 at half-time. I mean, it was pure class from Bordeaux in the end. And it's a bit like the Leinster game where Bordeaux kind of had this rapid-fire 5 minutes in the second half when bang, 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 and they're gone. And that's what these great teams can do with this high skill set, huge energy that can come off the bench. They can just score. You take your foot off the gas for a few minutes, game's over. And that's what happened. And players with absolute class do that. Sam Prendergast and Geordie Barrett and R.G. Snyman showed that for Leinster. We've had Antoine Dupont and Ange Capuozzo and Chocobares and Mayafu and all the stars of Toulouse did that. And Louis Bielbiere and Maxime Lucu were at the heart of it for Bordeaux as well. Louis Bielbiere is having an incredible season. And his pace, again, came to the fore. I mentioned Lucu already. He was the man of the match in this game. Deservedly so. Scrum half putting in 17 tackles. And his kicking was just spot on. In France, the way that it works is the scrum half is the main playmaker. In England and actually, I suppose, well, I won't speak for other countries. I'll just say certainly England, it goes through the 10. The scrum half is there just to kind of feed the 10 a little bit. Occasionally do a bit of decision making, but in France, it's all about Le Petit Général in the 9 shirt. And Lucu, oh man, for Bordeaux, he's so good. And in fact, when you look at it, think about the man of the matches this weekend. There were 12 games, and I think at least 4 of them, a scrum half was the man of the match. There was Lucu and Baptiste Serran and Nolan Le Garrec. 3 French scrum halves were man of the match. Dupont was amazing in his game. And George Horn is another one. So it was a weekend for the scrum halves, wasn't it? But for Leicester's credit, they had a really good first half. I think they actually managed to match the pace that Bordeaux play at. And I think they just gassed themselves out. They just ran out. The tank was empty in the second half. And that's because they put so much into that first half. And they came away with points whenever they had the chance. So they did really, really well in the first half. They got their losing bonus point. That's something. Cronin and Hayes were really good, and actually one area of weakness for Bordeaux, which other teams will be licking their lips trying to attack, is the scrum. Leicester's scrum was really good, and they deserve They deserve some credit, but it wasn't to be on this one. As for overall thoughts in the Champions Cup, how would you kind of group the teams based on what you've seen, just based on what you watched in that opening round of games? How would you sort of bunch the pack at the minute, or separate the pack, I should say? Because I'd go Toulouse were like the clear best team out of everyone. Leinster had flashes of how good they can be, but they weren't at that level. Toulouse were out on their own as like comfortably the best team. And then I'd say it's Glasgow, Bordeaux, Leinster, La Rochelle. I mean, hard to judge La Rochelle because it was just filthy conditions, but they were really mature in the way that they played. And then close to them, maybe just a little bit behind, Sharks and Toulon. Maybe Bath and Saracens as well. And Munster were very good. Claremont was solid. Northampton. I still look at teams like Bulls, and I still think they massively underperformed. There were teams that really didn't perform, and I say probably the top of the list for that, from my perspective, would be the Bulls. I was expecting a lot more from them, and I'm sure with Northampton, and here's one thing, and I love this for the competition. This is really, really good for the competition. The Bulls are sending the Saints are sending a full bore team to the Bulls. I was the guy doing the interviews after the game, and I asked Phil Dowson. I was chatting with Phil Dowson, and he said he's really looking forward to this whole squad spending some time together on the trip to South Africa. There's been loads of England players away, and they haven't had a lot of time back together as a squad, and so he's using the South Africa trip to take all of the big guns out and spend some time together. Now that leads me to believe they're going there for a win, which sets that game up brilliantly. And already, I mean, it's Sunday evening and we've only just finished this round of games. I'm already looking forward to round 2. I can't wait. Thoroughly enjoyed working on it. Thoroughly enjoyed covering it here on the channel. Help the video get a bit of life and reach rugby fans who are interested in the Champions Cup. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps. So does leaving a comment. And I would love it if you would hit subscribe.